Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today I am bringing you another home/apartment build for a character whose home that we don't get to see within the Nancy Drew games, but whose space I like to imagine within The Sims 4 based on that person's character. And you probably saw it in the title. Today we are building a good old-fashioned fishing shack/cabin for Holt Scotto from Nancy Drew Danger on Deception Island. Now, Holt and I probably don't agree on a lot of things, but there is one thing for sure that I think we do agree on, and that is aesthetic. And that might seem a little strange, or maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but Holt and I think, are like style buddies. I really enjoy like fisherman and lumberjack chic as part of my style, and I think that's definitely the style that Holt goes for as well. And I really was in the mood to build a rustic style cabin, a cozy little fishing shack in autumn in Brindleton Bay on the beach with the lighthouse in the background, and I thought who better to build a cozy little cabin for than Holt Scotto. I think Holt is one of those characters that seems very like grumbly and rough around the edges, but when he goes to his home, I think he is a person who really appreciates some cozy aesthetic. I think he really enjoys that cabin life. I think he likes cozy blankets. I think he enjoys warm wood tones and fireplaces rustling in the background and making his own food. I do think Holt is probably actually a pretty decent cook. He is by no means going to try to cook anything fancy, but he is going to, like, every morning he's going to make himself some eggs and sausage, and maybe he even bakes his own bread. I just think he's like a very rustic character in that way. He's very in touch with nature because he has to be when he's out on the water all day long. He's very practical. Everything in his home needs to have kind of like a purpose, and fuzzy blankets definitely have a purpose. They are not just for decoration because I would imagine that Holt like very rarely turns on the heat, and he just kind of relies on blankets, wearing warm fisherman's sweaters, wearing warm clothes, and just all of those cozy autumn things that I love, I think Holt would also love. So I had a lot of fun building this cabin, needless to say. Like I mentioned, I built it in Brindleton Bay in autumn, and you guys will get glimpses of it here and there as I'm zooming around working on the landscaping and decorating the outside of the house. But Brindleton Bay is so pretty in autumn. It has autumn leaves strewn all over the place. A lot of the trees are this really rich red color, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And then there's just this kind of ethereal feel of fog on the water. And like I mentioned too, you can see the lighthouse in the background. Even the tall grasses are autumn colored, and I enjoyed kind of blending in the landscaping that is around this plot of land into the land itself. I also really enjoyed using a lot of the debug items, so that's what you're seeing me do here, because I wanted the outside of this cabin to feel kind of like cluttered, but not in a messy or disheveled way, in a way that like Holt likes to have a lot of the things that he needs readily available, like those crates, any kinds of fishing equipment that he needs. He just wants to have it readily available. He doesn't really care necessarily if they're sitting on the grass, because he's probably really busy and needs to take them in and out of the water pretty regularly, and so it just makes more sense to him to kind of just have them sitting around in the back of his area, especially since the shack itself is pretty small, this cabin here. I'm going to be kind of bouncing between the words shack and cabin because I feel like it's a little bit of both. But it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. It's very cozy. Holt's the only person who lives here. He has lived here for a while, I like to imagine. And this is just his space. I also really enjoyed this debug fence going around the outside of the cabin, where parts of it are kind of like falling over, parts of it aren't like perfectly maintained. And I just like to imagine that Holt really doesn't care about that. I mean, the fence is more there for like just aesthetic purposes. He doesn't really think it's gonna like keep anyone out of his yard, and it just gets blown over in the wind sometimes. It's not a very sturdy fence, and the landscaping is really overgrown. Because it's autumn, all of the colors are kind of like browny and this subdued sage green, these red tones, the rich kind of purplish tones, these little fishing crates, like I mentioned, I'm kind of scattering around. I tried to look for anything that looked like it could have washed up from the beach to kind of put around to fill in the space. I didn't want any space to feel unutilized, basically. I either wanted there to be kind of some overgrown landscaping or some kinds of crates, fishing equipment, or storage things. And I put that into practice too when we start decorating the inside of the house as well as the porches. There's a front porch and a back porch. It's a very symmetrical little cabin. It's kind of a classic cabin style. And the front and back porch just have things that Holt might need to use. So like there will be a woodworking table. I gave him a little rocking chair and a couple crates and a box of wood, so it looks like he was whittling. I really enjoy that idea of Holt being a whittler because I think he probably is. I think that's one of the ways that he spends the free time that he has. I think that's something that he probably enjoys doing. But we're kind of coming up on finishing the landscaping here, having the outside of the cabin really come together, and I'm just so happy with how things ended up looking. It feels very like dark and masculine and cozy at the same time. Like, even though it does feel a little bit like not very well kept, a little bit like the overgrown kind of area of the lighthouse, I still think it feels very homey. And I would absolutely love to come stay in this cabin. I think it would be so fun. I love the matching orange wood tones on the side. And honestly, a lot of that was possible because of the recent base game updates that we got. So this flooring that I'm using as part of the porch and that I carry through to the inside of the cabin is a base game flooring that used to only come in one color, but it now comes in this beautiful orange wood tone, and I absolutely love it, and it ended up being perfect for this cabin. And it's kind of honestly just like saving me in terms of matching wood tones, because that used to be one of my biggest pet peeves in The Sims, was being unable to match my wood tones. Of course, on the inside of the cabin, you can already tell there are a lot of mismatched wood tones, but I was more okay with it on the inside because the inside is more decorated. The outside, I wanted it to still feel very rustic, like nothing has been done to the outside of this cabin whatsoever to update it. But the inside, I mean, Holt has lived here for a long time, and any DIY projects on the inside he has done himself, I imagine, and so the colors, the furniture, everything put together in there, I think was Holt's doing. And I wanted it to feel very cozy because, again, I think he secretly really likes that. I mean, his gray fisherman sweater, I want it. It's very cozy and it just gets across those autumnal vibes, which I really, really appreciate about Holt. So, like I mentioned earlier, this build is going to really be celebrating autumnal colors as well. So the entire inside and outside, I really tried to focus on swatch colors that were going to bring together an autumnal feel. So we're going for oranges and reds and deep yellows and greens and browns, just those really rich colors as often as possible. I loved on the back porch here kind of like putting this picnic set and this just tub of things that he probably needs to bring with him to his fishing boat at times, the little buoys on the wall, the steering wheel, the fisherman's ship wheel on the wall here, all those little elements. And you probably saw too, I pulled out some of the feathers and the fish that you can mount on the wall from the debug menu, because he would definitely have mounted fish on his wall. And I tried to find the feathers of birds that would be like seaside birds that Holt would see flying around the ocean. So we've got like seagulls, we've got herons, and I put those feathers on the wall as well. Excuse me. So now we're working on the interior of the house. We're going to be starting with the bathroom space. I really loved this yellow tile. I thought it was perfect. And I put wood paneling in the bathroom as well, which might seem a little strange. A lot of the cabins that I've ever stayed in have wood paneling in the bathroom. And I don't really know why, but they do. Maybe it's water treated wood or something, and maybe it's not, and that just adds to kind of like the rustic feel of everything. But I thought it worked really nicely. I thought it looked very realistic. And once I start getting to put a bunch of the towels in this space and the curtains, I got to play with some of the new base game colors, like this maroonish, reddish burgundy towel. So excited to have that color for the towels. Just so excited to have new swatches in general. It is amazing how much that can really shake up the game and make it feel so new and exciting. For a free update, I am very, very pleased. And now we are moving on to Holt's bedroom. It's a pretty small little bedroom. It's so small, in fact, that I had to put his dresser on the outside of the bedroom, but I don't think Holt will mind. I don't think he's really changing his clothes all that often. He's a pretty practical fellow. But I wanted to go for lots of warm, dark colors in the bedroom, make it feel very warm and cozy. I went with like lots of lanterns for the lighting around the house, and that got across both the fisherman's vibe and the autumnal vibe that I was going for, so very happy about that. And I use, of course, because we're in Brindleton Bay and because of the nature of Holt's job, I do end up using quite a few items from Cats and Dogs. I feel like that's probably the biggest pack that I use. I also use quite a bit of Seasons. I feel like I used actually items from the kits as well. I used the Country Kitchen kit for the kitchen because I thought it was just like a really cute rustic looking kitchen and worked actually really nicely for a fisherman's cabin. And I was so excited to get to use this swatch, this autumnal swatch from the Dream Home Decorator pack. Like maybe it's a little too fancy for Holt. Maybe as a longtime bachelor, Holt would actually have a like black curtains or more simple curtains if he had curtains at all. But I just could not help but use these curtains. I absolutely love them. I would absolutely have them in my own home in real life. But yeah, here we are using the Country Kitchen kit. I did also use the Industrial Loft kit because I just loved the colors of the furniture for that kit, and I thought it worked so nicely for this little fishing autumnal cabin for Holt. And I was really excited to get to use the appliances in this orange color because, I mean, we're going for autumn vibes. I thought it was perfect. I thought it looked so good. And filling it in with just the right amount of clutter. Holt's one of those characters, he spends quite a bit of time at the Hot Kettle Cafe, so we know that he probably gets a lot of meals, he gets a lot of coffee from that kind of space. But like I mentioned, I think Holt is a character who actually does know how to cook and does actually utilize his kitchen. But I think he's a very classic standard man cook. Like he's going to be making himself like meat and potatoes, he's going to be making himself eggs and sausage, he's going to be making himself like a turkey sandwich for lunch. So he's making a lot of his own food. I just think that it's going to be on the more simple side, which sometimes those like simple meals are the most comforting. So I think that works really nicely for Holt. This space does also pretty nicely fit a little 2-person dining table and a nice little sitting area over by the fireplace. I definitely wanted to have a really big fireplace because I can imagine that the wind blowing off of the water in autumn in Snake Horse Harbor can get very chilly, and so he's going to want to have a nice roaring fire going at all times. Little cookie jars, and then the fish all over the place, which I just thought was so fun. I really enjoyed getting to utilize those in a build where they actually made a lot of sense. And I loved using this kind of reddish wallpaper wood paneling in the entire house as well. I just thought the color was really nice. It worked really nicely for autumn, and I think Holt would really appreciate it as well. I'm just really trying to mix in like the practical masculine vibes, but also keeping it really like cozy and warm and comfortable. So hopefully I achieve that. You guys will have to let me know what you think down in the comments section. You'll have to let me know if you think Holt would live here, if you would live here, if you would enjoy a stay in this cabin if you had the opportunity. I would love to hear that. And please let me know too any other characters that you would like to see home builds for. This is a nice little kind of video that I like to make when maybe I'm having a busier week, but I still want to definitely get a Wizard Kitten Wednesday video out to you all. These little videos can be really helpful for that. So it's always good to have a set of characters on hand that I know that you guys might be interested in seeing homes for. So let me know that in the comment section down below as well. I think this little sitting area is probably my favorite part of the house. I love the kitchen too, but just getting to use this basket from Cottage Living with the warm plaid throws and the autumnal colored pillows and this like thick knit rug on the floor. It's not knit, there's a word for it. It's like the rope texture, and I can't remember what it's called, but I think it all came together so nicely. It feels so warm. I can definitely imagine Holt sitting here with a coffee to go from the Hot Kettle Cafe after a long day of working, and then just warming his bones with the fire in the background and that cup of coffee, sitting there watching some TV. It just felt very, very warm and comforting to me. I really, really enjoyed this build. Like I said, Holt and I might not have a lot in common, but aesthetics we definitely have in common. But we're coming up on the screenshots here now. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I do hope you enjoyed this build. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.